So Vergil Ortiz survives 2 knockdowns to defeat Serhii Bohachuk for the WBC World Super Welterweight title on a 12-round majority decision. Let's talk about it. The weirdest thing about this fight to me was the fact that the talent gap between Ortiz and Bohachuk was massive. Ortiz was faster, more fluid, he had more punch variety, he was more explosive, he was a better combination puncher, had better head movement. Bohachuk literally looked like a guy who'd learned how to box from reading a 1980s Soviet-era boxing instruction manual. I mean, literally, his style is horribly basic, yet still puzzlingly effective against the much more talented Vergil Ortiz. It was the weirdest optical illusion. In the first round, Ortiz was getting the better of the action, but he then suffered a knockdown, courtesy of a Bohachuk right hand. It wasn't called a knockdown at the time, referee Harvey Dock missed it, but after the round, he consulted with some officials at ringside, and he asked them if they needed to look at an instant replay. And the officials at that time said no. Later on, I think it might have been after the 4th or 5th round, they overturned Harvey Dock's initial decision, and they ruled it as a knockdown in the first round. So, as I say, Ortiz was winning the first round, then he suffers this knockdown. He protested, but it was a knockdown. You know, perhaps his foot slipped or whatever, but it doesn't matter. If the slip is caused by a punch, then the referee has to call it a knockdown. It's as simple as that. So anyway, in the following rounds, for me, Ortiz was getting the better of things. Landing the cleaner shots, going upstairs, downstairs, head and body, some real nice left hooks to the body. But the interesting thing is, early on in the fight, Bohachuk was less accurate than Ortiz. But the longer the fight progressed, it seemed as though Ortiz's accuracy was getting worse and Bohachuk's was getting better. So perhaps Bohachuk was finding his timing as the fight progressed, and he was tightening up his defense because he was doing a better job anticipating what Ortiz was going to throw and then blocking it. Whatever the case may be, that did seem to happen as the fight unfolded. Ortiz became less accurate, Bohachuk became more accurate. But still, after 6 rounds, I certainly thought that Ortiz was ahead. But in rounds 7, 8, and 9, Bohachuk came back into it, and he scored another knockdown in the 8th. And Ortiz once again protested, said that it was a slip, whatever the case may be. But if a punch causes the slip, then it's a knockdown. Somebody needs to read Vergil Ortiz the rules, because he doesn't seem to understand. I mean, the referee speaks to fighters in the dressing room before they go out to fight. Surely this has been explained to Vergil Ortiz at some point in his professional career. I mean, they have rules meetings and all sorts, right? So maybe it hasn't stuck in Ortiz's head. Anyway, through the final third of the fight, there were several rounds that I found very difficult to score because both guys were throwing so many damn punches. I mean, literally, some of these rounds in the second half of the fight were non-stop back and forth action. I'm talking about non-stop. Punch after punch after punch after punch from both guys. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how the hell am I going to split these two? I'll have to watch this round several times. There was just so many damn punches. And this is one of the issues when you have these type of fights, particularly at the lower weight classes where there's not only a lot of punches being thrown back and forth, but the fighters are fast, right? Scoring heavyweight fights is a lot easier. So there's definitely a lot of rounds in this fight, as I say, particularly in the second half, that could have gone either way. But at the end of 12, one judge had it 113, a draw, and the other two had it 114 to 112 to Vergil Ortiz. Now, some people think this was a really controversial decision. Some people are calling it a robbery even. Personally, I can't really go that far because, as I say, there were a lot of close rounds in this fight. I mean, just to give you my scorecard, I had it 114, 112 as well, but I scored it to Bohachuk. So I had Bohachuk winning this fight, but in no way am I saying that this scorecard I've got is definitive, because there were quite a few swing rounds. And also, as I said earlier on, the talent gap was so big that that might have influenced the judges. And what I mean by that is Ortiz's style and his work, the way he threw his punches, was a lot more aesthetically pleasing. Now, I know that none of this is supposed to matter. At the end of the day, you're just looking for punches landing on the opponent's face. Which fighter does it more than the other in a clean and effective fashion? But when rounds are somewhat close and one guy's moving his head and he's up and down to the opponent's head and body, moving his feet, flashy combinations, then going back to the jab, front foot, back foot. When one guy's doing that and the other guy's just coming forward, kind of stiff, hands up, very basic, and as I say, they landed a similar amount of punches in the round, I can see how the judges would be swayed in favor of the more obviously talented guy, the guy whose style, the guy whose work is more aesthetically pleasing. Ortiz's work was just more friendly on the eye. So yeah, I'm not going to say this was a robbery at all. It was a close fight. I mean, Ortiz definitely showed plenty of vulnerability in there, but he was up against a very, very tough man, a stubborn man, a consistent man, a strong man, evidently. Now, moving forward, they're looking to match Vergil Ortiz against Terence Crawford, potentially. A lot of people are writing Ortiz's chances off based on this performance. I think it's an interesting fight. A lot of people were not impressed by Crawford's last fight against Madrimov. What I'll say is, Ortiz has the type of style that Crawford will be far more familiar with, the Madrimov style. Madrimov with a constant in and out movement, very patient, very precise with the right hand. Ortiz don't fight like that at all. Ortiz has a style, as I say, that Crawford will be more familiar with. It's a style which is far more common in the United States, the Madrimov style. Having said that, Crawford doesn't fight anything like Bohachuk. Crawford doesn't throw as many punches as Bohachuk, typically anyway. So yeah, I think it's an interesting fight. I'd like to see it. Hopefully they make it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What did you make of Ortiz's performance here against Bohachuk? How did you score it? Did you have Bohachuk winning by a couple of rounds like I did? Or did you have Ortiz winning by a couple of rounds like the judges did? Or maybe you had it a draw. Whatever the case may be, drop your scorecards in the comments. And before I go, make sure you check out this film study I've done for AJ Dubois on my Patreon page. It's about an hour long, and I go through footage of several of their previous fights and highlight their strengths and weaknesses and the mistakes which either guy may be able to capitalize on. If you want to access this video along with hundreds of hours worth of other exclusive boxing content, as well as our members chat, just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called the Boxing Brotherhood. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, just like Netflix, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. Just download the app from the Play Store or the App Store. All the links are in the description box below.